Hey guys, welcome to the channel. If you've never been here before, my name is Trent and I appreciate you coming to watch this video. If you have been here before, I appreciate you coming back. So as you can probably tell from the video description and from this beautiful title up here at the top of this whiteboard, we're doing an opening day breakdown. Now the reason this is happening instead of showing you film is I had a little bit of camera issues. That it died before all the action happened and that I didn't bring extra batteries. So I had some issues, not the camera, I had some issues. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you an opening day breakdown of kind of everything that went on, and I'm also going to splice in some second angle GoPro footage of me during things so you can kind of see how I'm feeling, what I'm saying, and I do talk through some things in that footage as well. So let's set the scene for you. Myself and my friend Dylan are hunting here, and we get to our spot about 12, probably about 12. And the reason we get there so early is opening day in Illinois on public land is generally speaking, pretty highly pressured, and we wanted to make sure we were the ones that got to hunt that spot. So we get there about 12, we finish getting everything together, and we start off to our stands about 12:30. I make the walk back, and I get to my stand right here, the blue X is my stand, about, you know what, I'm going to actually even label that. There we go. I get to my stand set up about 2:30, or finally get up in the tree and set up about 2:30.
Back in the saddle again, baby. It's opening day we're in Illinois archery season on public land, sitting in a tree over a cut bean field. Now about 3 weeks ago, Dylan and I were out here scouting, and this bean field wasn't cut, and we saw a bunch of does and an absolute stud out in this bean field. I was hoping when I got in here today the bean field wouldn't be cut yet, but unfortunately it is. Still, I'm back in here. I'm just happy to be up in a tree. You know, we got out to the parking lot here about noon, got up in the tree. It's 2:30, just after now, so about 2 hours, and that's to walk back, find a tree, all that good stuff, you know. It was a mess getting up in this tree, man. Just the weird limbs and stuff. My sticks are all canted weird, and I had to hop my lineman to my tether like 3 or 4 times, but I'm up, and I don't even know, honestly not even that far off the ground, maybe 15, 16, maybe 18 foot at the most, 17 foot at the most. So, but cover's right. I can see the bean field pretty well out in front of me. Down here behind me there's some hiking trails. The deer travel those hiking trails all the time as a means of easy easy walking. So we'll see. You never know what's going to happen. I know here before too long I'm going to have to take this freaking bino harness off and throw my hoodie on. I'm just excited to be back in a tree, man.
And I came in, I walked through the timber, I found the right tree that was near this corner of this cut bean field, and I found the spot that I really liked. I had really good cover there. I still, to this day, even after everything that happened, you'll hear about that here in just a minute, I still really think it's a good spot, and I'll probably hunt it again. But in the meantime, the reason we had picked this spot is because about 3 or 4 weeks prior to season, we had glassed this field when it was still beans in, and seen an absolute stud of a buck back in this field. In doing so, we thought it would be a good idea on opening day to go back there, or I wanted to on opening day to go back there and give it a shot. Now Dylan was hunting further over in this area. We had seen another buck, that same sit, that had gone over in that direction, and he wanted to pursue that buck, so that's what he was doing. Now, about 5 o'clock is when the action started for me, and that's pretty early for early season. And it wasn't anything crazy. All I had is I had a doe cut into the timber about 15 yards away from me right here. And we'll go ahead and put a D there for doe. And I don't know exactly where she came from. I couldn't, so this is representatory of really thick stuff, and I couldn't see too far that direction. And I really couldn't see into this corner either. So she could have come down this bean line, she could have come from over here. I'm assuming she came down the bean line and cut in. Either way, she moseyed around for just a few minutes, and I hunt out of a saddle. If you're not familiar with the saddle, you really have a strong side and a weak side, similar to a stand. But to shoot your weak side on a saddle, generally you have to get around the tree. And with most platforms and ring of steps, you can do that. In this particular tree I was in, there was too much on the backside for me to get around it. It's just name of the game sometimes, it happens. Not to mention all this thick stuff between us. I don't know if I could have squeezed a shot through all that stuff and actually got to her in a ethical manner. So she got a free walk and ended up turning and going back into the timber that direction. Off she went into the sunset. You know, all the happy story stuff. Pretty cool to see a deer that early, and it got me excited to be, especially being that it was opening day, it got me excited. But I didn't have any more action again until about 6:15 or 6:20. And in between times, you know, I'd read on my phone, or if I've got reception, scan social media, whatever. Just anything to pass the time. But I happened to look up about 6:15 or 6:20, and there was a doe standing about middle of the field, all the way down here in the corner, or in what I call a back corner. Now I couldn't see her super well because again this thick stuff had clouded my view, and in my stand I'm not right on the bean field edge. I'm actually about 10 yards off it. And when I'm hunting field edges I tend to prefer to sit off it a little bit if I can, just for some cover purposes. So I couldn't see her really well, but I knew she was there, and I knew from on my phone measuring distances that it was approximately 40 yards to the middle of the field, 71 to the opposite side. And it was about 50 to where she was at, and 50 is just out of my comfort zone, and I didn't have a clear shot anyways. But I know deer tend to work edges, so I figured when she came out she had one of two options. She was either going this way, or she was coming down towards me. And initially she had started to head up this way, and I thought, well, you know, I'll watch her, and that's fine. Then I started to think about it. So the wind for opening day, where I was supposed to go in that direction. I think it was coming out of the northwest. The thing is, where I was sitting, it was doing something that I call a bull effect, and I don't know what it's actually called, it's just what I call it. And essentially what was happening is the wind was blowing across this bedding, catching the timber here and swirling and shooting back up across the bedding. So my actual wind direction was more like that. So my wind was doing that. So if she'd went this way, she'd have caught my wind. And it seems to me on public land especially, does tend to be 10 times more wary than bucks or anything else. And I knew, without a doubt, the minute she caught my wind, it was game over. I knew it. Fortunately, instead of, even though she had turned and started to look like she was headed that way, she'd actually turned back around and started to feed in my direction. Now, if she'd have followed that bean edge, I'd have had a 10 to 15 yard shot, wide open. She'd have been good as dead. I'd have been dragging out a doe opening day. I was there with the intentions of shooting a big buck, a specific big buck. But opening day, itchy trigger finger, excitement, and I really like to eat deer. More than I like antlers on the wall, I like to eat deer. So, if she'd have come by, she'd have been dinner. Plain and simple. Now, in the time I'd been watching her, another deer had come out from the bedding area. And I'm assuming he came out from the bedding area, and I say he, it's a little 8-pointer. And I'm assuming he came out in this area, but he had come down and fed into the middle of the field. Now at this point, again, guesstimations. The reason I say guesstimations via my app is I had actually found out my rangefinder didn't work. Lovely, right? Yeah, it was great. So I guesstimated he was about 40 yards in the middle of the field. Now, this is a legal buck where I hunt. There is a 4-point on one side restriction, so they have to have at least 4 on one side, doesn't matter what's on the other side. But he's young. He's a small 8-pointer, probably doesn't even break the 100-inch mark, and I just don't get excited about small bucks like that. I get more excited about what he could be in 2 years or in 3 years than I do about shooting him and taking him home now. So when he came out, I said, that's cool. I got to watch him for a while, but he was going to get a pass. Until he started causing me problems. The one exception to my rule is I have a vendetta against deer that bust me. If you bust me and it's legal for me to shoot you, you're gonna get it. It's just just how I am. So what happened is he had fed around out in the middle, but he decided he wanted to go hang out with his doe. So he started to come across the field. The problem is, my wind was blowing basically between him and that doe. So he hits my wind stream and he stops dead in his tracks. Craziest thing I've ever seen stop. I mean, dead. Just head down, boom, nose in the air, sniffing. I'm like, great. Now I'm gonna have to shoot him if he gives me a shot. I fully expect this buck to sniff, blow, go bounding off back into the bedding area. Nope, not this buck. This buck starts at the 40-yard mark, 40 or 50-yard mark, nose in the air, trots towards me, stops, nose in the air. So he's now following my wind stream back to me. Now, I don't have any kind of deer scent on. I don't use any kind of cover scents. The only thing I do is I make sure my clothes are washed. And I guarantee I sweated up a storm walking in, so there's no way he's not smelling me. I know he's got to be smelling me. Still, in he comes trotting. He eventually stops at 25 yards in front of me. I've got a wide open shot at him, 25 yards, his nose is up in the air. And all I'm thinking is, man, if this deer blows at me, I'm going to have to put an arrow through him. He's legal. He's not really what I want to shoot, but he became what I wanted to shoot when he started causing me problems. Fortunately, he had stopped smelling the air and turned broadside. I had drawn my bow. I mean, I was literally ready to plug this deer the minute he even fainted. If his tail would have went up in the air, it'd have been game over. I was going to plug him. He doesn't blow. He saves his own life is really what he did. He doesn't blow. Instead, he runs over to the doe and then ends up around here to eventually go back in the bedding. He ran to the doe first and then kind of hung out up here for a little bit before he walked, and I mean walked, not ran, walked back off into this bedding. The doe, however, had gotten spooked at this point because she didn't know why the buck was freaking out. And she had started to cut across the field to get my wind. So she eventually comes and stops just 5 yards further than what the buck had. Now she stopped basically when she hit my wind stream again, just like the buck did. And a doe is fair game. Granted, I wanted to shoot the big buck, but the doe was fair game. So when she stops at 30 yards, I draw and I send an arrow. Right over her back. It was awesome. Just right over her back. Here's exactly what happened. As I mentioned, my rangefinder didn't work. I couldn't range. I hadn't pre-ranged. And I shoot an EZV bow sight. Some of you may know that. The beauty of the EZV is you can range without a rangefinder, right? The problem is if you don't trust the sight doesn't work. Plain and simple. Sorry about the dogs barking, guys. There's probably our outside cat and they like to bark at it. But if you don't trust the EZV doesn't work. And instead of trusting the V, I tried to guesstimate the yardage of the deer. I guesstimated it at 40 yards. She was actually probably 30. So again, launch an arrow clean over her back. I'm frustrated. I expect to watch this deer run out of my life forever. Nope. She runs up and sniffs the arrow that I just missed with. Talk about insult to injury. Of course, this gives me time to pop another arrow, free my quiver, knock it up, draw my bow. And at this time, I'm convinced she has to be 40 yards. Has to be. It only makes sense if she was 30 before. The arrow, I aimed at 40. It sailed about 10 yards over her back. She's got to be 40-ish. Draw the bow. Set the anchor. I've got my mask pulled down so I can make sure I feel that nose button. I set a good anchor. I'm feeling great. Let an arrow fly. Right under. You know, I mean, when I'm talking right under, I'm talking if it had been 3 inches higher, I'd have been tracking a heart shot deer. Like, you can't miss any more right under a deer than what I missed. And I'm talking perfect right in the pocket. Would have been the most beautiful shot. Now she finally runs off. Opening day blunders, man. So I'm starting to like process through my head, like, what happened? You know, I mean, at first I was like, God, I can't believe I missed twice, but, you know. Then I start processing things. There was a twig. So at 30 yards, my arrow trajectory through the very small hole I had was clean. At 40 yards, my arrow would have had a more of an arc trajectory. There's a small stick I didn't see, or in the moment at least didn't see, that my arrow deflected off of and knocked the arrow down slightly. Explains the low miss, because I paced it off after I got out to the tree and to the location of the first arrow that she was standing right next to. It was 40 yards on the dot. Well, 30 from, but I was about 10 off the bean field. So, 2 misses. Awesome. The night ended less than spectacularly. I had another doe come out with about, from the same area this initial doe came out, with about 5 minutes of shooting light left, 4 minutes. I mean, it was pretty dark. I couldn't really see being back in the timber anymore. She came out and sniffed both of the arrows and then ended up feeding in that same area before she finally walked off and did her thing. When I got out of the tree, I spooked 4 more does that had come up this cut bean field edge. I mean, all in all, it was opening day. It was a lot of fun, don't get me wrong. I love anytime I can draw my bow and shoot. I wish I would have been taking a deer home with me, but that's just how it goes sometimes. That's why it's called hunting and not killing. Anyways, that is the Illinois archery season opening day breakdown. If you guys like these breakdown videos, let me know in the comments. I like this because I can do a little bit more in-depth analysis of what's going on. In the future though, hopefully I'll be showing you the hunt with footage and then maybe do another video of the breakdown of the hunt. And I can get more in depth onto why I pick areas and stuff like that too if you guys would like. You just have to let me know. More than happy to do basically anything you guys want within reason. One thing I'll never do is I won't reveal the locations that I'm hunting or the public land I'm hunting on unless it's for a specific video. And the reason I do that is, 1, public land's hard enough without having to compete with you guys for my spots. Number 2, if someone else hunts a similar area or the same area, I don't want to blow their area out for them out of respect for them. So, that's it guys. I appreciate you watching this video. If you like the content, please don't forget to subscribe. It helps me a lot and it costs you absolutely nothing. And I will catch you on the next one. Peace.